Welcome back to Temple 420. It's been a few days since I've recorded a video, and it's been an interesting, very interesting few days. Today is November 1st, 2022. The time is 7:12 a.m. It's still dark outside. I'm in Wheeling, West Virginia. I have my hat slightly got the tag right there. I get so self-conscious when I get on camera. I don't know why. Because I can see myself, I guess. Anyway, I wanted to call this episode the resurrection of Evan Kopelson. Normally, I don't mention anyone by name that isn't famous, but Evan Kopelson is putting himself out there on LinkedIn, and he does a podcast, radio show, I don't know what you call it, video blog on LinkedIn, where he expresses his political ideas, and I think he'd like to be famous. Evan Kopelson, like me, is a Jewish person who believes Yeshua, Jesus Cristo, is the Messiah. And I didn't know that until recently. I wrote something on LinkedIn, or I posted my one of these videos about Kanye West on LinkedIn. And I commented. Some whiny Jewish guy was like, "Oh, I got beaten up on the bus when I was a kid because I was Jewish, and they went after my yarmulke and they took it off and they put it on to make fun of me." My friend Josh Moskoff and I went to Westwood to watch a movie. One day, we lived in Beverly Hills, and we took the Wilshire bus. Wilshire went right through the flats, the south side of Beverly Hills where we grew up, to Wilshire and Westwood Boulevard, and we could walk to the movie theaters. Westwood is a little village of West Los Angeles, right outside the UCLA campus, just to the south of the campus. Yeah, south. And when my dad went to UCLA, it was like this cute little village, and growing into like a business center. By the time I went to UCLA, there were office buildings along Wilshire Boulevard that were very large, similar to downtown or Century City. Wilshire Boulevard had become it had always been a major thoroughfare, but now it had grown up more like a Park Avenue in Manhattan, where there were fancy, expensive condominiums on the street, office buildings, and it still runs from the beach to downtown. It's one long street. I think that's like a 12-mile stretch. Olympic Boulevard, I believe, is the longest. Not that it really matters. I think Olympic is 26 miles long, which was for the marathon when they first had the Olympics in Los Angeles. Getting back to Evan Kopelson. Evan and I have known each other since I was 13 or 14 years old. Yeah, probably 13. I was a freshman in high school and I turned 14. Maybe I was 14, turned 15. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I was a young man, and so was Evan. Evan was 1 year ahead of me in school, and his parents are famous movie producers. I'm sure they produced many, many movies, but his parents' most famous movie to me were the Beverly Hills Cop movies with Eddie Murphy. Now, Eddie Murphy performed at my friend's mom's, Mitzi Shore's comedy club, and I had seen him perform at the Comedy Store before. I don't know why I go off on all these tangents about Hollywood or whatever. My friends say that whenever I try to explain something, I sometimes use movies. Like I think in terms of movies and TV. Having grown up in Los Angeles, having grown up around the entertainment industry, I think I've incorporated some of that storytelling into my own stories, because some of the characters that I've seen on film, although fictional, have had a deep impact on me. And some of my friends, people that I've hung out with, have then gone on to become in television and movies. And so when I see them, I have more of a connection of not just like, hey, that's so-and-so, the movie star, but I'm like, hey, that's so-and-so, the dude I went to high school with. So, yeah, anyway, so getting back to Evan. So Evan was a year ahead of me, and he was a coach. In 10th grade, when I was in 9th grade, he was an acting coach for the drama festivals that I was involved in. And that's how I got to know Evan. And so Evan and I have always been friendly, never super, super close friends, but really liked each other and friendly. And one time, shortly after I had become a Christian, I met Evan somehow. We reconnected, and he invited me to his place in Venice Beach. And he was studying a type of marketing, affiliate marketing, where you get other people to work for you, to take your classes. It's a really interesting concept. And I really started getting into marketing and merchandising because I guess that's where my family's business is. I have family in the clothing business. My brother's in the clothing business. And when I graduated college, I started a clothing store, a hemp shop to be particular, 2000 BC, the Stone Age hemp shop. But we sold hemp clothing, bongs and pipes, hemp paper, some hemp food, anything hemp we could get our hands on. And that was my business. And eventually, I started Temple 420. And when I started Temple 420, I got in trouble. And eventually, the judge gave me permission to reopen a medical marijuana club. And I eventually did reopen Temple 420 the second time. And that's when I reconnected with Evan. Somehow I reconnected with a lot of friends from high school, because instead of being on Hollywood and La Brea, where my original Temple 420 was, this time I was on Robertson Boulevard, just south of Pico, which was a very Jewish area, and it was just south of Beverly Hills, on your way to the freeway from Beverly Hills. So I was more likely to see my friends who lived in Beverly Hills that I had grown up with passing by. They heard I was there, and so many of them came by to that location, where you would think Hollywood and La Brea is really not that far out of the way. But because of the traffic patterns in Los Angeles, Hollywood is very far from Beverly Hills. Even though it's like 3 miles. You can walk there no problem, but driving is just like, the traffic. So many people never came to that location. Now, getting back to Evan. So we reconnect, and he teaches me about this thing that I had seen before, where you sign people up, you give them some free education, you get their information, you give them something free, and what you're doing is you're building a trusting relationship with your customer by giving them something for free to begin with, and then selling them stuff later. If that free thing is actually valuable, then they'll come back and buy more from you later. So was an interesting concept, and Evan shared that with me, and he was starting to make these courses. I don't know if his was teaching guitar or piano. Evan's very talented. So my skill was the marijuana business, and this was when marijuana clubs, medical marijuana clubs were just opening. People were getting into the hemp clothing industry, and back then I was a real expert. Now I feel like there's so many more people that know more than me, but back then I was one of the most knowledgeable people in the world about hemp and cannabis because I had been doing it for so long. So Evan says, all right, well, we should do the school and you teach people your knowledge. And I was really interested in doing it. And I went over to Evan's house in Venice for a second time. I forget, with my wife or without my wife this time. And I had been a recent Christian. I became a believer in the Messiah, having been raised Jewish, in July of 2003. Interesting, the same month my house burned down in Arizona. I didn't realize that until right now. Yeah, it seemed like a lot of stressful shit was happening all at once. I lost my house, I lost this, my dad was giving me a lot of pressure, and I'm fighting with my dad, and I ended up reading the New Testament, and I was like, oh, these guys are all Jewish. They believe everything I believe. What the hell are we not reading this book for? So, anyway, so I went over to Evan's house, and we had a nice time. Evan's a very sweet person, generous person, and, you know, he shared his apartment with me. He was showing me the painting. It's on his wall, and his art, and the beautiful view. And one of the paintings really struck me. It was a painting his father did. And his father, like him, is an attorney. And that's the thing about Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's now been apologizing. I'm sorry I recommended the vaccine. I didn't know. I was fooled, you know. And the thing about Ben Shapiro is he's so smart, he's dumb. So my wife's a doctor. You know, they were pushing it. They were telling us it was safe and effective. I didn't know it was dangerous. Because he was talking all sorts of smack about people. So just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean you're that smart. But you think you are, because you are smart. You have to be smart to be a lawyer. But wisdom, I guess, would be the word that would be more appropriate. Not intelligence, but wisdom. Now, I look at Ben Shapiro and Evan Kopelson. Okay, so let's get back to the painting on Evan's wall. So Evan's father is an attorney before he became a movie producer. And he was working for a big corporate law firm. And he was right. And he went and had a case and put it in front of the jury. And he lost. And he somehow seemed that the court was corrupt. And that the jury really didn't matter. And so in this painting, the jury is kind of blurred out, but you can see how there's 12 people there in a box, but they're not important. And they all laughed, he said, when he returned to the big law firm. And this is Evan's father. And they said, oh, we knew you would lose this one. Don't worry, we're going to win on appeal. But that way they get more money out of the client. And so it was almost as if the system was rigged. And Evan's father, who ended up becoming a movie producer instead of an attorney, or an attorney movie producer, was really disappointed because he really believed in the law and trusted the country and the system. And you can see the pain in this painting of this realization that the law didn't matter. Now that there's some corruption going on. And how'd he deal with it? He went and became wealthy and made movies and maybe got his point of view out, his corruption, through his films. And I don't know his whole film catalog or anything. Like I said, I only know the Beverly Hills Cop one. Dun, dun, dun. The Axel Foley song. Anyway, and Axel Foley is a great character that we remember. He was a cop from Detroit who came out to Beverly Hills to solve a crime, became friends with the Beverly Hills cops who were a little prejudiced against him because there was a lot going on in that time in the 80s of racism and prejudice in America. Dang, this great tie-in. Okay, so Jim Hill, a sports reporter, and I think I may have said this last year, very famous. I think he was an NFL Ram, and then he became a CBS sports news reporter on Channel 2. One night or 1 week, he drives through Beverly Hills in his Mercedes with a film crew in the back. And this is when they're exposing fancy, nice restaurants with horrible practices in the kitchens and stuff like that. Killed businesses and fancy restaurants for a minute. And the news was actually like still telling the truth back then. So Jim Hill rides down Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills and is pulled over 3 times. I don't know if it's in a week or one night, but for absolutely no reason other than driving while black in Beverly Hills. And it was kind of a known thing that after dark, black people weren't allowed in Beverly Hills. There was the police officer that slapped Zsa Zsa Gabor that used to hang out at our school and tell kind of racist jokes to teenagers. And we had black kids at our school. Some were not living in Beverly Hills and some were from Beverly Hills. And I was friendly because of, it's so funny how many famous people went to our high school. Now, the girl that introduced me to Lenny Kravitz, I'm still friends with her. She lives in Israel now, and her sister is married to The Edge, the musician in the band U2. So that's a famous connection, but the sister is not famous, so I won't mention her. But she's still beautiful. She's got a really beautiful husband. They got this beautiful place in Israel. And I stay in touch with her just because she's a beautiful person. But we conflict on politics sometimes. She was pro-vaccine, she's pro-government, pro-media, kind of like Bono himself and the whole U2 band. They're very much globalists. And even though their music's cool, their politics is just awful. They're really almost horrible people because they're promoting all this globalist stuff and they do it in such a cool way. I know I'm going off on a million tangents here and not really talking about the Bible, but the whole point is that Evan Kopelson is the resurrection. And here's how I get to that conclusion, where I was comparing Ben Shapiro and Evan Kopelson and intelligence, both Jewish attorneys, both intelligent. If you want to measure intelligence by an IQ test, I'm sure that they would both measure very high above average. But Evan Kopelson somehow has become a follower of the Messiah. Probably not because of my influence, because what happened was Evan, besides having this awesome painting on the wall, also had some weird sexual stuff. Something like that he was showing me that was just strange to me. And it wasn't probably not that weird in Los Angeles, but as someone who just became a Christian, all right, I'll just say what it is. And I hope this doesn't, I mean, it's true. He had a swing for sex, which I've had sex in a hammock, and actually I understand it makes a lot of sense. But I felt like he was just kind of dating random women and being involved in some type of behavior that I didn't want to be associated with. And so even though we filmed this thing that day and we're going to work together, after seeing that, I decided not to work with him. And he was very upset and pissed because I continued to try to do that for another few weeks and produce some tapes and was going to do a lesson like this, and then I got arrested again. So I never did, but Evan felt like I took his idea and I took it from him, and he never wanted to be friends with me again. And I never really heard from him until he agreed with me about the Kanye West thing on LinkedIn. So this whiny Jewish guy whines about getting beat up, and he blames Kanye West. And I'm like, man, that's a real stretch. He's like, this anti-Semitism. And I'm thinking my friend Josh Moskoff and I took the bus down from Wilshire, from Westwood. 3 black kids got off the bus and started to fight with us too. I tried to joke with them and become more friendly with them. Josh kind of stood up to him like he was going to fight with them. And nothing really ever happened. We didn't get beat up. We did get intimidated. We told our parents. They're like, oh, call the cops. Nothing really happened. And it ended up, years later, I saw one of the black guys again who had become friends with my cousin, and I became friends with him. And I never mentioned it, never said anything. But you know, the city's a small city, even though there's millions of people. And coincidences like that happen all the time. And there was never a fight. We never really got into it. They were just trying to intimidate us. And we looked scared because we were like 2 13-year-olds or 12-year-olds. And they were just big black dudes who our same age but happened to be a little bit bigger than us. Which, talking about racism, I was thinking about this the other day, how you can't mention racism all the time. And I'm like, who was the first person to ever get canceled in this cancel culture? Because I was thinking, man, I got canceled before Alex Jones. I got kicked off of Wikipedia. I got the satanic magazine GQ wrote this hit piece on me right before they had me arrested the first time. And so it seemed very coordinated. Now, okay, I'm going to pause for 1 second because I'm going to make a really important point. And I started talking about myself, and I shouldn't have spoken about myself. I should have stayed on the point. And I can't remember what it is, so I'm going to pause for 1 second until I remember, and then I'm coming back. Okay, I still can't remember the exact point I was going to make, but I drank a sip of water, and my mouth is less dry. So, Evan and I have not been friends for a while. He's been upset with me, and because I'm Christian, Jewish Christian. I'm still Jewish. That's the whole thing. I never really Christian. But I believe in Jesus, the Messiah. So, because I was like, all right, whatever, I should apologize to Evan. Even though I just didn't want to work with him because at the time I felt uncomfortable about what was going on in his life. I really didn't say anything to him. I kind of just was like, stayed away. And he was really upset with me. And so when I found out he was very upset with me, and he was like, yo, you took that from me. I was like, fuck, Evan. I apologized. I reached out and I apologized. He never accepted my apology or said anything, but I felt better, and I knew, okay, well, I'd forgive him, and I forgave myself, but I apologized to him. And now he reached out to me, not reached out to me, but said, I agree with Craig. It was like the first time we had any communication in years on LinkedIn because of the whole Kanye thing. And Kanye was talking shit about Jewish people. And Ben Shapiro fired Candace Owens, her White Lives Matter shirt, and for supporting Kanye. And I respect Ben Shapiro and his little media thing, but I really like Candace Owens. Not only do I think she's beautiful, articulate, I just think she's a great American. I think she's just represents the best of America. And it's kind of like that I'm not holding a grudge. I'm trusting in God and my faith. I'm standing up for pro-life, for babies in the womb. I'm standing up for black people. I'm standing up for white people. I'm standing up for humans. And she's just an awesome person. I've never met her. I'd love to meet her one day. But I see her, the way she speaks with such confidence and strength. And there's been a real change since I did our last video, and that's why I was hesitant to do one for a few days. I felt as if I wanted to see what was going on. Elon Musk walked in to Twitter with a sink, and he said, let that sink in, and he took over. He kicked out the engineers, and he fired the 3 top people. A woman named VJ, I think her name, just an awful person. She just censor everyone. Oh, and it's come out that the government and big tech have been censoring everyone, and I've been against that forever. And because they've censored me for so many years. Oh, the first person who got canceled, Jimmy the Greek. So Jimmy the Greek said, on the football, Jimmy the Greek was a football guy, and he was like really good at giving, like, these guys will win by 3, these guys will lose by 7. He was a sports bookie famous guy, Jimmy the Greek, the freaking Greek. And one day, this is like somewhere after Roots, so we've all seen like, oh, black slavery in America, you know, because before it was kind of hidden, and now there was this whole TV special, and everyone watched Roots. Alex Haley's special, Kunta Kinte, baby. Excuse me. And so Jimmy the Greek said, he goes, well, why do black people dominate sports? He says, well, there's a historical reason for that. They were slaves, and when they were breeding their slaves, the slave master put the biggest black dude with the biggest black chick and would make the biggest black baby so he could have the biggest, strongest slave. Chattel slavery. They were like cattle. They were a property that could be traded and sold, and there was no family. That's where we're going to. They're destroying our family like we are slaves. They're treating us, the Federal Reserve, like we work for nothing. They print this money out of thin air, and that's what we work for. So Jimmy the Greek said this on television. He was canceled. He's the first guy ever canceled. Gone for saying the truth. Okay, let that sink in. Now, the same thing's been going on for years and years and years. So now my friend introduces me to Lenny Kravitz somewhere in high school. And Lenny and I go to this girl's house. We're all going to the beach. And I don't go inside the house, but Lenny does. And the girl's mother says, what's that nigger doing in my house? And he comes out. And, you know, we knew this is at the time when Jim Hill's getting pulled over. And there's this racism in Beverly Hills that's kind of known. And so that was the basis of Evan Kopelson's family movie, Beverly Hills Cop. So this is 1982. I don't remember what year Beverly Hills Cop came out. But I remember Lenny Kravitz, after that mother said that to him, going, I can't believe it's 1982 and people are still so racist. And then he was talking about how his Jewish father was a lawyer in the same office building as this girl's Jewish father. They worked in the same building. And here was this lady's wife yelling at the son of another Jewish lawyer in the same building. And Lenny Kravitz was really hurt by this. He was like, man, he's like, what a racist fucking bitch she is. He didn't say that. He was just like, I can't believe it's 1982 and people are still like that. He was really hurt. And it really kind of affected me too, because I was like, wow, man, that is awful. And I felt bad. I mean, it wasn't like he lost a job or it kept him from career opportunities or he was held down by the man. But it was just kind of one of those really hurtful things where someone's mom didn't ever want to know the content of his character and just was judging him by the color of his skin. And I mean, that's some racist shit. And I think she was Jewish. And a lot of Jewish people are very racist. And I'm Jewish. I feel like I can say that black people are racist as fuck too. So, and I've known a lot of black people. So I'm not just singling out the Jews. People in America are fucking racist. So look at the Indian people that were fired by Elon Musk. Agrawal Pura, whatever the fuck his name is, the guy who was running his censorship asshole. He comes to America, and instead of embracing free speech, he goes for some communist ideals. Well, why were the 3 people Elon Musk fires right from the beginning all Indian Americans? Okay, because Indians are in tech. Why are the black people in the NFL? There's historical reasons why are Jewish people in banking and the media. So, even Charlemagne the God, who was talking shit about Ye for talking smack about the Jews, did the same thing 9 years earlier. There's videos that have come out with them. And I'm sure Jewish people are going to say I'm anti-Semitic, even though they're my people, because I agree with Kanye that some of the Jewish people he was calling out are assholes. And as a people, our people tend to dominate the movie and music and entertainment industry and the banking industry and maybe a big percentage of the clothing business too. But there's historical reasons for that, just like there's historical reasons black people dominate the NFL. But no one's allowed to talk about it. If you talk about it, you're canceled like Jimmy the Greek. All right, the sun's coming up. So, this is a non-biblical session here, but maybe more biblical than anything before. So the Jewish people have been singled out by God, the true one living God. Why? I don't know why. But for some reason we were. We were singled out with Abraham, separated as a people. And we fucked up. Time and time and time again. That's what the Bible says. You can see it in our history. And if we would just know our own scriptures and follow them, then God's going to bless us with a kingdom. And now, that kingdom is open to both Jews and Gentiles, to people who follow the Messiah, who recognize him as God's Son, who came and gave his life so that we can have everlasting life. And we don't need to be afraid, even though we're living in these end times. And hopefully, I can mend my friendship with Evan. But I say Evan is the resurrection because Ezekiel talks about the dry bones coming back, and that is Israel. And Israel has come back, and that's a very prophetic thing. There's never in the history of the world been a people who were scattered into nothing, into every country of the world, who lost their nation, lost their language, and have come back. And not only have come back, but it was predicted they would come back through prophecy in the scriptures. And that's the difference between the Jewish God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, as compared to the gods of wood and stone and metal, and these other false gods, is that our God is the creator. And because he created it all, he can see the beginning from the end. So he's able to tell you what will happen in the future, so you know he's telling the truth, almost like a proof. And because Evan is Jewish and has come to become a believer in the one true Messiah, his spirit has been resurrected already. So he, like all true Christians and Jewish people who come, or all true Gentiles who come to know Yeshua the Messiah, or all Jewish people who come to know the Messiah, they will have everlasting life and be written in God's book of life. And that's what we all pray for each other. May you be written in God's book of life. Especially in this season, in the fall holidays. Anyway, there's so much more to get into, but I am grateful that the Spirit of the Lord touched Evan's heart, and hopefully him and I can be friends again one day. But I just wanted to say that I don't want to cut it short, that because of Evan's common sense versus Ben Shapiro's I'm Jewish, so I have to defend Judaism, and Kanye's anti-Semitic. Kanye never said an anti-Semitic word. He never said Jewish people were awful or mean. What he said was Jewish people dominate a certain industry, like black people dominate a certain industry, like Indians dominate the tech industry, like Irish in South Boston dominate the police industry, like Italians in New York maybe dominate the construction industry. I don't know. There's historical reasons that groups of people tend to be in certain businesses. And to deny that fact, that Jewish people are involved in the media, or that they run the media, they run Hollywood. Now, they don't. There's obviously other people from other ethnicities in Hollywood who are executives. But the majority of this very small minority of people, Jewish people are only like 2% of the population. But in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry, they dominate. Because historically, that's where they have come from. Bottom line. So to say that it's not true is just to lie. So Ben Shapiro fires Candace Owens, someone who I like and respect, because he's protecting Judaism from anti-Semites. Really? Or is he just perpetuating more of the same false narrative that he did when he was pushing the vaccine? So you have an really intelligent Ben Shapiro and an even more intelligent Evan Kopelson, who recognizes that the Messiah is who he is who he says he is, and is going to have eternal life. Now, I'm praying for Ben Shapiro. I have no bad feelings about Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro is naive. I think if Ben Shapiro took the challenge and ever spent one afternoon and read the New Testament, he'd be like the same as me. Holy shit. These are my people. Anyway, and that's what I think a lot of Jewish people will happen. But it won't happen, unfortunately, and this is where they're going to say I'm anti-Semitic, until the Jewish people are really suffering, until they really have no other hope but to turn to God, and God will step in and save them like he always does. But the Jewish people never turn to God until the last minute. And so that's just what the story says. And I'm not hating my people whatsoever. I love my people, but I'm also not naive because I know the scriptures. So I'm thankful for Evan Kopelson. I pray for him, and I pray for all my Jewish brothers that they crack open the book and read for themselves. All right, that's it. I think I said, I was Jimmy the Greek. I couldn't remember. He was the first person ever canceled in America in my lifetime. All right, guys. This is Temple 420, Pastor Greg X. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, like, whatever. I probably should have said that at the beginning all the time. I have no merch to sell. But if you want to support us, reach out to me, send a note. We always appreciate your help. Thank you.